So, let me share what happened to those who didn't know, and how it ended for them. Maybe it will make it clearer why Uretz abruptly shut down all his projects and left our homes in peace. Remember the monastery across the river from us? It seems they've restored it now, made some improvements, everything is getting done at our command because we're all acting religious these days, and it became necessary. But before that, after the revolution, there was a different order, and everyone suddenly stopped being religious, so the monastery became unnecessary, and they started demolishing it. Well, they partly demolished it. An architect came up with a project to turn it into a stadium, create a park, and the working people would stroll there and do sports. And it would also bring him something, maybe even an order of merit. And yes, he did get an order of merit, as well as something else. More than he could handle. He was put in jail, and both of his sons hanged themselves a year apart. I don't know what happened to his wife, but I think she suffered as well. Those who didn't come down from the heavens with party orders to the earth, but attributed the merits to themselves, ended up really badly. You'll find it funny, but our Uretz, it seems, could be related to that second architect, but with a higher rank. They all have dynasties. Plundering the city is a profitable business, as you can imagine. Sorry, I got off track again from the main topic, Tanyash. But this topic, it turns out, is more complicated than I used to think. Maybe it's because I've been accustomed to it for a long time, taking it as a given, and I rarely thought about it before. I also saw the fingers only a few times before our meeting in the yard. The first time I saw them, I was still a girl, and I didn't fully understand what I had seen. Then, when they started building the tower near the metro station where the late Ludmilla lived, I was still young but more aware of things, and I had the chance to take a closer look. So, the first time. Do you remember the ravine behind our houses? Well, not all of it. Part of it is preserved, and part of it was filled in. If you look at old maps, it was always called the Great Ravine, and it really was enormous. I saw it in its original state. They only started filling it in at the end of the 1950s when I was already going to school. Right when our houses were built, in 1958, trucks started coming in dumping all sorts of things there, from dirt with trash to, believe it or not, several trucks with plaster busts of the mustache man himself. They abolished the cult of personality in 1956, so the plaster mustache man went to fill in the ravine. And that's when I first saw the fingers. We were walking home from school with my friend, and the path took us across the ravine. As kids, we often took this shortcut to avoid a longer route, which made our trip faster. We saw another car approaching, a dump truck, about to unload another load of clay into the ravine. But nearby, at some distance, a man was standing. Something about him didn't seem right, and we couldn't quite figure out what it was. My friend tugged on my hand and said, "Let's go see." So we turned off the path and went closer. The September grass was already dry, lying down, and we slipped on it, but we were drawn to that man like a magnet. Then, my grandmother shouted, "Maria, Maria! Stop right there! And you, Zina, come back here, you fool!" She was shouting as if at livestock. My friend and I turned around, and there was my grandmother with her bucket. She must have gone to the store and accidentally caught up to us. She noticed where we were heading. "Masha, come to me quickly," she commanded. "Zina, come here right now." She said this to my friend. We continued to watch the man, unable to divert our eyes for some reason. Then, another man approached him, almost the same as the first one. He strolled over leisurely, as if he were going for a walk in the park. He must have walked over to the first man and stood next to him. They both stood there like two statues, staring at the car. My grandmother somehow made her way to us through the grass, grabbed our hands, and dragged us back to the path. I have to say her hands were strong because she worked at a bread factory until her hair turned gray, carrying heavy boxes, bags of flour, and other loads. With those iron hands, my grandmother hauled us back to the path, and instead of scolding us or dragging us by our hair, as we expected, she just ordered, "Stand here like this and don't look there. I'll tell you when you can." Then she glanced up and muttered something incomprehensible. At least, it was incomprehensible to me at the time. "They won't leave, those damned fingers," she said. I had to put up with them touching the ravine. Writing reports for one, suffering innocently with the other. "Masha, Zina, don't turn your heads until I give you the all clear. Stand still. Why can't we look at them?" I couldn't help but ask. "Those men are just men." "That's because they're not men, they're fingers. You can take them as not right." "Well, maybe not take them, but what do we care? But you girls, if you ever see people like that, run away from that place as fast as you can." My grandmother scolded us. "What kind of people, Grandma?" "Well, people like those over there. Masha, Zina, they're not people." "Who then?" my friend asked, surprised. "Inhumans, that's all. I don't know who they are." "Spies?" Zina asked, her eyes filled with fascination. "You're the little spy, you fool. Not spies. Spies are people. But these are not." "Well, they seem to have gone now. Masha, take the bucket and be careful, bring the oil." In the evening, I pressed my grandmother for more information, but I didn't get a clear answer. All I remembered was the word fingers, and I almost forgot about it soon after. But my mother always pronounced it as PLC, emphasizing the correct stress. Both of them were talking about the same thing. Now, think about what happened with the filled-in ravine. Right. Nothing. At one point, the road crosses it, and there's a narrow path running alongside the sausage factory fence. The filled-in area itself sank and got overgrown with wild trees. Nothing was built there, and nothing will be built because you'd have to be a complete fool not to understand that. The ground has been unsettled for over 60 years, and it continues to shift. The people who filled in the ravine are long gone, according to my late mother, who knew many of them because she worked at the factory. As I later understood, the city extended 2 fingers there, and that was enough to suppress both the people and the land in that place. And it worked well. You know, Tanya, my grandmother said something else that I've only begun to realize now as I write you this letter. She told my mother that they pinched our girl. My mother argued that it was just superstition and nonsense. But, Tanya, it seems that something did happen to us back then. Take Zina, my old friend, for example. And me too. Our lives seemed to be going well, but neither Zinaida nor I, nor our children, nor normal families came our way. There were no notable successes either, despite our honest, diligent work. As you know, I spent my entire career in the HR department, and Zina became an accountant. You would think we had decent jobs, bread and butter work, but somehow we only saw the bread, never the butter or the caviar. It's as if an invisible wall stood between both of us and simple human happiness, something that I can't quite explain. We had dreams, but they didn't come true. However, I have to admit, both of us are still practically healthy, lively, and we don't complain about life. So, I don't know for sure what could have caused my family and career setbacks. Maybe my grandmother was right about something, or perhaps it's just pure fiction. Okay, I'm getting distracted again. Let me tell you about the house near the metro station where the late Lida lived with her daughter. They were building it in the 70s, and I was quite young back then, still taking the bus to work, which no longer exists, but it did back then. It almost dropped me off right at the factory gate. My stop was right next to the construction site, so every morning I spent anywhere from 10 minutes to half an hour waiting there. I saw the construction in all its details and knew everything that was happening because rumors spread quickly in our town.